and just thank you all for bringing in all your work. I am a professional artist. I'm a contemporary realist. I started off as a still life painter. I love still life. I love portraits, and I love landscapes. And if you're an artist, I encourage that you kind of explore and learn all of it, because they kind of always come together. You have a figure, a portrait, a landscape, or holding a still life. I am also the owner and the founder of the New England School of Fine Art, which is located in Worcester, Massachusetts. I teach quite a bit. I critique quite a bit as well, so hopefully I'll be good here tonight and give you guys some pointers. Around the room, you can see I brought in a few pieces. The little landscape right there is from Vermont, up in Jeffersonville, and it's, anyway, I just put the frame on it, but I like it. I wanted to just show you an example of what I can do with landscape. To the side of that are two portraits that I've done in my portrait drawing class. Is that portion? No. I have young beautiful models at school, so, and in the back, I brought in a more formal portrait that's in oil, and then also a watercolor that's a portrait. And my daughter is usually my main model for most of my work. She's been modeling for me since she was very young, so probably for about 20 years. And I don't know, her name is Arden, and someday I'm going to have the Arden show. So that's a little bit about me, and with that, I don't know what the best.
I was going to explain how the sequence is going to work, but if you want to do that.
Oh, okay. Sorry, go ahead.
So we have a great number of paintings, and so we're going to need to time each one so that everybody gets a fair shot. Does someone want to volunteer to be the timer?
I've got this.
Okay, so we're going to do like 3 minutes each, and I know that's not very long. And what I had mentioned, if you were bringing something, if you had a particular issue or problem that you wanted to ask about, maybe lead with that. Or sometimes people like to just say, oh, this was my goal in doing this particular piece, just so that it's a little bit more interactive. And we love to hear as much as possible from Joanna, but we'd like to hear from you too, if you have some particular things that you want to mention about your piece. And then so we're going to go around the room once. And then at the end, if there's time, if you got a second piece, then we'll do the second one. But because we've had a better than expected response, we probably will go around once, probably. And because we still need to get a break in the middle. So, thank you all for coming. I think it's wonderful to have everybody get involved. And even if you didn't bring something, I think you still learn a lot from watching everybody else.
So with that, do you want the artist to say something, or maybe just to get right into it?
You can start, but let them, sort of raise their hand. Yeah. This is another way for all the new people to get introduced to everybody, so you can just let them volunteer.
So if you can raise your hand,
all right, whoever,
if it's yours.
You see this work?
And
okay, you see. All right. It's very sweet. It's a nice little landscape, but I really like the colors that I'm seeing in that. I feel like the sky does have some depth to it, and if it were mine, I would try to push the depth a little bit more. So meaning you have a darker value here, and you're going to something lighter, and down here I would do the same thing. I would have it darker, and again going to something a little bit lighter. Is this a marsh or?
This is a marsh. It's like, down the case.
Sure.
It looks like I was looking for, it was misty, sort of, the clouds had left to it, still sort of foggy on the lawn. I didn't know whether it needed more, copper color or something darker.
I usually go from dark to light, and when we get to the light back there, it looks like your line that you have there is almost like a pure titanium white. white. And I try to avoid, I know we have to put titanium white into our work to make the colors lighter, but I try to avoid like having a pure white in there. You always want to leave some wiggle room for yourself that you can put the white someplace else. Things I would do, there's a nice path kind of leading and maybe having the mouth of it a little bit wider, and that will help to lead over into the background. And there's a part of me that maybe would like to have just a little bit more interest, not like fully develop the clouds, but maybe have just something that you can tease the viewer with, having just a smidge of light or something just to pull the eye again in several directions. I think when we create and paint, it's amazing that we control where people look. I always think like, I got you because I'm controlling, you don't even know it, right? So you control where people look, and you always want to think about composition. That's usually the first thing you want to think about, and then also where's your focal point? Right, and how do we get there? And then also if you have like little sub-focal points that you can focus on. I think my big thing in looking at it, the colors are really pleasing. I'm not 100% sure if I feel like the top matches the bottom. Like this is like really stormy, and down here to me is a little bit more airy and colorful. So that's something that you might want to think about too. And then again, I would take the line that's there and probably not have it so light. Hopefully, do you have any questions?
Sort of tweaking the bottom more, so it sort of moves to the top and then it comes down to the top.
Right.
I
I mean, I think the top has depth, but I feel like the bottom, maybe not so much, or maybe you could get a little bit more. And then thinking about the not having such a straight white in there and toning that down, right? Okay. Is that okay with that?
And so is this one? Good.
Okay, so yeah. It's a beautiful, it's very, very colorful, and it's a beautiful pastel, and I love the movement and everything of the flowers. A lot of times when I look at things, I try to determine where the focal point is. If I see a focal point, right, where does my eye go towards? And up here I can see I'm really going from the flowers to whatever vase is up there, this little point here. Is that a vase? Is that a vase or you know? It's a jar, okay. Right up there. I'm sorry, it wouldn't be a vase, but you know. And the one thing that I'm noticing is that the tip of that is so close to the edge of your matting. I like to give things a little bit more breathing room, and I think if you came down like maybe an inch, I think that would really help out. Because when I look at this, I really love the flowers, but I do get a little stuck right on this point right here. It's kind of pointing me up, and it's going right to the edge of the mat. So I would think maybe about either cutting a mat if this goes higher, just to give yourself a little bit more room, or changing that around. But I really like the energy that you put into the flowers. I think that's really lovely. Oh, sure. Like that. That's really nice. So, who is it?
So, I guess my question is,
I like the clouds. Are you, so I'll tell you, watercolor is definitely, like, people will pull out sunsets, and to me, always they're a nightmare because they're hard to handle, or the reflections that are going on in the water. I always feel like, what could go wrong? And it's a lot. So when I paint in watercolor, and is it washing it, or is it?
no, actually, that's acrylic.
It's acrylic. Oh, you're fooling me. You're fooling me. I was going to give you all these cool watercolor techniques to do. And now we're done with that. Well, we'll pretend it's watercolor. In watercolor, I like to have a softening that happens, and I know that can be really, really challenging in acrylic to get one color to blend into the other. And I feel like in a lot of places you have nice blending, but some of these edges, I would see if you could blend it just a little bit more. One of the things that I noticed is that your horizon feels like it's kind of smack dab in the middle. Typically, the horizon, it might be a smidge lower, but I either put it a little bit lower or a little bit higher. Though one of my favorite painters, George Innes, and I don't know if you're familiar with George Innes, and he would just wiggle and stick it in the middle no matter what, and it did all right with him, but that's one thing I would think about. I like that you have this darker area here, because when I was talking about values, that darker area kind of pushes everything back in space and pushes that sunset or sunrise back. But the clouds, can you be more specific if you want to talk about your clouds? Because that's the only thing I would have, like maybe some softer transitions.
So the reason why I mentioned the clouds is because of Denise, and then I go to Tuesdays, I showed her the photo. And she said, those clouds are really, really hard. I said, yes, they're really, really hard. But I worked on them, and this is what happened.
No, I really like the clouds, and I feel like there's like a very nice distance going on. There's always things that we can tweak with that we can tweak, but I feel overall it's good. Just quickly, because I know we're limited for time, when I talk about depth and distance, usually, and it's okay to have dark clouds here, but usually it's dark to light, and then dark to light, and down here, maybe that's something that you'd be looking for, just a little bit more change in value, because that will help to even push things back a little bit more. But really nice.
Okay, put that aside. I mean,
Isn't that pretty?
Casual, like mine.
That's really nice. I love it. And I love the rudder there
I don't
too.
usually put something in like that, so this is my first adventure. Yeah, well, dog, I did one with a dog too, but I didn't bring that one, so.
I think it's really nice. I really like the depth that you have. I do like that you put a person in there, because that really adds to the scale of everything else. So you can really see, the depth and how tall things are. Overall, I think it's nice. Possibly when I do washes in watercolor, I like to, I guess you could use the term broken color with it, but I always like to add other colors and let them mingle. And it's really hard with watercolor not to go in and poke and control, but to kind of let the painting do its own thing. So even though it's dark, I think over here my hand would have added a few more colors to that. The person, it's hard to tell if they're a smidge tall, and something that you could try that I do is I will, I call them worms, isn't that terrible? But I think with my own students, if I call a person a worm, like something at a distance, it kind of like gets that pressure of painting somebody, it takes it away. And sometimes when I'm painting something like that, I just draw out the form, right, and think of it just like kind of a moving worm, and then I will just fill it in with some watercolor, and just working kind of wet to wet in that small area, because the color will just stay in the channel where there's water, and you can get kind of a nice effect without being so, deliberate like that. But I think overall it's really a beautiful piece, so it's nice. That's watercolor too, correct. Nice job with that. I recognize this lighthouse. Where is it?
On the senior laptop.
Oh, it's really nice. You did a beautiful job with it. So, I'm just going to say, it seems like you hit a lot of things just right. You have a really nice cast shadow that goes into a form shadow, so you can see like a hard edge versus a soft edge. The presence is really nice. I feel like you have a little bit of reflective light, so sometimes when we're creating form, what will happen is you would have a cast shadow, but going into a form shadow, and then on the back side, you have all the light from the atmosphere kind of coming in. And possibly my hand would have pushed it a little bit more, but I feel like you nailed it. It does feel round, so I think it looks really nice.
Talk about this one piece. On the far left-hand side, the shadow, it's too flat. You know, I was kept on thinking, as the cylinders and round circles, there's always that one hard edge that comes along, it's cylinder, round circle, then it comes to front to light. Is that area flat to you? It looks very flat.
When I look at it, and I think a lot of lighthouses, I think it's really nice. But could you push that? Sure. A lot of times what I do on that particular side, so we're talking about over here, a lot of times I'll put something warmer in there. So in watercolor, like I was saying, watercolor kind of blends itself in a way, so it's really nice. And if you were to come over here and just add something that's warmer, it creates. Do you know what the bedbug line is? It actually creates a bedbug line, and, right, and all that stuff. So I would think about that. We'll go over it when we have more time. Great. So, but overall, do you have any other questions? I think it's really lovely. It's executed.
I'm looking at that one area going, it looks too flat. I see color and zapping, but I don't see that in that one part area bending, going around.
Right. No, I think maybe if it was a little lighter, it would round it a little bit more, but I think overall it still has nice form, so. All right. Sorry. That's really, really nice. Did you paint this plein air? You did. It's really beautiful.
Some corrections in the studio because I didn't have enough time to finish that dark tree.
Okay.
So I was trying, that's what I've been working on, trying to give that some form. And I like what's happening in the background.
Right.
And I'm not sure if it needs a little more.
So I really, so your eye goes right here to this form, which would be Gary's focal point, and I feel that looks really nice. Things I would do, I would be careful that this doesn't divide it too much, like right down the middle, and maybe I would swing some of these out just a little bit more. It almost, this value, which is really pretty, and down here, they almost become very similar. So maybe some more darks in the foreground to try to bring the foreground in down here. And sometimes when I'm working darks that are in the foreground, you could take something with green and mix it with, I don't know what your palette is, like a transparent oxide or Bersian or something warmer into the green, and it helps to bring it forward a little bit more. Overall, I think it's really lovely. There's a little, and especially that you painted it plein air, because when you paint plein air, like you are on the spot, right? And there's not a lot of flexibility with that. There is kind of a channel here. Possibly I would bring something over. Nature, even if we do an excellent job, nature's not always going to give us the perfect composition, so we have to go and kind of tweak things around. And I love that you have all the lights here, and I love that area. I just wish there was something maybe over here. Do you agree? Like, can you see how that becomes kind of a blank channel going down? So maybe if something just extended a little bit more over here, or maybe some more dark, so something within that to fill that void. But my eye goes right to the area over there. So it's nice. Do you have any questions, or? I like that. That's nice. It's beautiful. We're all like that with our own work, right? Yeah. Okay. There we go. So, I love seeing the two of these things together. So I have to tell you, I'm not I'm not a photographer, but I am a photographer for my own artwork, so, with this, I like both pieces. There's something I love about this. I love when things are a little moody, so I like whatever, filter that's been put through. I think that's really, oh, who's the artist? I'm sorry. Oh, over there. So I like this, but then I like the one that has a little bit of color too. I feel like over there, just the color, the orange, patina is kind of, the rustier is kind of grabbing me a little bit. You know, do you have a question for me? So.
Well, yeah, one, I guess I'm kind of treating it as two versions, but that's kind of the one thing I go through with photos is, the left is the color that it was, and then sometimes I take a photo and see it and use it, so that'll be between that photo there. My other question is, I usually, I'm not, the fence is in focus, and the foreground and the background are out of focus, and that's something I was trying and seeing how that goes.
Right, right. And, and I personally lean a little bit more towards this one if I'm gonna look at them both. I feel for me personally, it has more interest, and I like the fence. There's a lot going on though. There's a lot of busy work that's happening everywhere, and even for me as an artist who may paint this, right, if I were to take this photograph, possibly I'd maybe clean some of it up just because I feel like it's a little chaotic. And you can do that, right, in Photoshop?
Sometimes.
Yeah. So I might think about that because I think it would really put your focus more in the foreground here, and then it would help to push the background, I think, back a little bit more. I would experiment with that though. That's what I would do for mine.
Is the tree trunk on the right feel uncomfortable, or?
I'm on the fence with it. That I was thinking about it. Sometimes the nice thing about this is it helps to push things back in space, and I think we saw that in another work. So let's put it this way: it doesn't bother me, but there's a part of me that would want to see like a little bit more of a distance going on there. So maybe if you were able to tweak a little bit, do Photoshop and clean some of that up just to see what it would look like. I think that would give you more depth and distance in the background.
I hand you this, and I'll be able to two hands.
You guys have me sweating. Oh, my. Oh, thank you. All right. That's really nice. Dry?
Mohegan,
Oh, good for you. That's really nice.
bedroom window.
Wow, that's really nice, and it's pastel.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so some of the things I would think about. So when you're painting, when I paint, I always look for a direct light source, right? Because I always want to see, it may be with whether I'm painting or if I'm taking a photo even, I'm looking for light and I'm looking for shadow. So I get stuck a little bit right here, and you could say, well, Joanne, that's exactly what I was seeing. But for me, I want to see a difference between this plane and this plane over here. And there's a part of me that right here, so I'm very mindful of tangents. Do you know what a tangent is? And it's almost there where this is joining into this. So depending upon how I look at it, I'm not quite feeling as much depth as I would like to feel. It's almost like it's flattening out and things are coming forward. So if this were my work, I would probably, if this is more the shadow side where you have the front face of the building here, I would make a sharper edge right at the corner, and I would fill that part in with something just a little bit darker to really show this side over here. And my question is, I guess, I can see the shadows running this way, so that's really getting the light, correct? And then the other thing I would do possibly is take something very dark, so you have the dark roof over here, and I would really try to carve out the other side, just so like there's part of the roof over here, and then possibly lighten some of this up. I would darken the horizon just a little bit more, and I am a stickler about straight horizons. It drives me bonkers when I see a horizon line that's a little bit crooked. And yours looks straight, but it's so faint. I think I would like to see just a little hint of it back there. So overall, really nice and good for you. I mean, right outside your window, that's awesome. That's really good. A still life. All right, I started off as a still life watercolor painter, so this really hits home for me. So who is this? Over there. All right. The one thing so any of you know, if you ever tried a still life, ellipses are a bugger, right? Ellipses drive you crazy. So I would say right here would be one thing I would think about, is really trying to see if you can get that to be a more fluid ellipse going around. I get kind of lost between here and here. I love painting metal, but I'm feeling like it's not feeling to me like it's three-dimensional. So there's going to be some shift in value that's happening here that maybe you just quite didn't capture. So I would think about, if you're working from a photo reference and not from life, I would think about if you still have that. Do you see some slight shifts going on over there? Possibly even this inner value, this inner part being a little darker. I love little bits of interest in texture and just the holes here. I think I would punch that up and make that a little darker. You have all your color that's put here into the foreground. I don't know, sometimes I like to extend some of that up a little bit. I think it would be a little bit more interesting. And I like so I work with a lot of diagonals for compositions. Vermeer did, so I do, right? But I'm just joking, but Vermeer did, and I do. But you can see we have nice diagonals, so I like the placement of that. So possibly even if the background got darker, just something, I feel like all your energy is right here in this half, and then I just want a little bit of a dark value or more color or something going on. Does that make sense? Yeah, did you have any questions?
No, I wasn't sure if it's too many items there, too crowded.
It's not that it's too crowded, it's just, to me, it all is just contained right here, and I want to just
I'm gonna break our rules, because you actually brought in.
Oh, okay.
Just addressing some of the things, so we'll do it for 3 minutes. And some of the things you were just talking about, these, it's more spread out. That's
So I
okay.
like it where in here you can feel that diagonal coming up, and I always like a nice direct like source, so I think that works really well. Areas, just be careful with the ellipses. Ellipses are really hard, so possibly the other part of the box would be much darker there. I would love to see what happens where if it comes behind the model, it's kind of disappearing. I'm not 100% sold on the perspective, but overall it's really nice. And they're both good, but I do like the placement and this one better. Yeah, that's good. And so, no, lots of objects are fine, but it's just how they kind of all marry together. Okay, that's another very sweet watercolor. Okay. Nice. And do you have a question for me or something you want to think about?
Well, there was a whole lot of stuff in the photograph, and I tried to simplify, I'm not sure.
So I think your perspective is really nice. I like the kind of the one red house over there and the blue water, and you have the Aregia water a little bit. I I'm not sure what colors you were using. It looks like ultramarine blue at the bottom. Sometimes I use Prussian blue. It's a nice color for the water. Maybe you were using Prussian up here. I think when I look at it, I think maybe just, it's hard to say getting more definition. You put a lot of your contrast up in this area. And again, for me, maybe I'd like to see maybe a little bit more depth going on. How does this lead to that? So maybe things would just get a little toned, maybe a little darker or with another color just to kind of bring your eye up this way. One thing with perspective, I'm just questioning if it would be a little bit wider here as it kind of moved back in space. Your sky wash is really nice though, and the buildings are really nice, so I feel like that's working for you. Does that help out?
Yeah, I wasn't sure, but the blue sort of matched the color of the photograph, but I didn't look at it.
Yeah, well, and that's so, all right, that's the tough part, and there'll be some, I can see we have some landscapes coming up, so we'll talk about John Carlson's book. Does anyone have John Carlson's book? Yeah, if you want a good sleep at night. It's a tough book to get through, but it's full of good information, and I think anytime that you can paint from life, working from photos is really tough, and what happens for all of us is we try to match the photo, but why do we want to do that when we're painters, right? Then we'd be photographers. So anyway, yeah, but if you start to read like John Carlson's book, it might give you a little bit more insight to what colors you could use and how to create depth and all that stuff. So, all right. Hello. All right.
I'm a new painter, and this is my second attempt on the same thing. So,
Do you want to put up the other one too? Do you want them both up at the same time?
I thought you would.
Yeah, I think if we just look at them, if that's all right, if we look at them both the same. So, all right. So I like a lot of the brush strokes that you have down, and I like some of the looseness that you have. For me, I would give this more depth. So again, the sky should go from something a little bit darker to lighter. When I say lighter, it doesn't mean that you add solely titanium white, because there's kind of an order of how the color changes. It might go from a cerulean blue to something that picks up a little bit more yellow, but not true yellow. And sometimes when we're at the ocean, we may see by the horizon a little bit more purple being added into that. So there is this kind of gradation that happens and variation that happens as the sky changes. I think one thing I get stuck with is that the values down here and the values up here. So values just are the darks and the lights. The values are very similar, and I would want to change that just to create, if you're painting landscapes, you always want to be thinking about depth. How do I create depth? How do I create space? That's what, for me, I want to be able to walk into a landscape and really feel that it has that nice depth to it. So the hard part is, was this done from plein air, from life? From a photo. So photos tend to flatten things out, and even if you're out plein air painting, your eye may not be able to pick up some of the subtle changes, but there are probably going to be little value changes, and even within this, little value changes. I do like your second attempt better. I like this area than the first attempt. I feel like this just sticks out just a little bit too much. And that would be it. Just how do you make this so it's not flat, you know? And that would be the question that you need to ask yourself.
So I'm listening to a lot of the notes that you're making for everybody else, and I'm just wondering, are you, should I try to go with the red berries in the corner, as I have in the original? Or are you saying I need to go?
So whether it's red berries, it doesn't matter. Usually you want your darks more in the corners, like, or here, so it can be anything. We can put red berries, hydrangeas, whatever, you know, but you do want to have value shifts. And this is something that would be good for some of you if you're interested, is if you take a picture of this with your phone and you convert it to black and white, and then you look at it, is it all the same, you know, or do you see a depth going on? And that's what I would recommend. Okay. You're welcome. Oops, sorry. Not again. This isn't here, yeah. All right.
I'm doing the best I know what I can.
There we go. You know, there we go. There. And I recognize this, right? Manchester by the sea. Really, really nice. So a couple of things. When I look at the gazebo here, which is really catching a lot of attention, when I was just talking about values being similar or values being different, the top point of it, even if you see it like this, I would change this so the value doesn't match so much, because to me, it blends in too much with your sky. Does that make sense? Was this done from life? You playing air painting? Oh, bravo, that's awesome. I'll tell you a quick time. Remind me to tell a Manchester by the Sea plein air painting story about the tide changing. It was not good. So in your cloud is really nicely done. But when I was talking about titanium white, and titanium white can really overtake something, I feel like I would love for this to be a little bit more subtle. And sometimes with clouds, I have more fun painting clouds because you can make them up, right? You don't have to paint what's there because they change in a second anyway. And maybe I would either bring it down from the corner more diagonally. So sometimes I'll use clouds to reinforce a focal point. And here, and maybe if you wanted to keep that value, if this cloud came over there, I mean, you could play around with that just to see it, and then you would have that value contrast. And I think you have to ask yourself, what is your focal point? Right now, I look at the gazebo, is it the boat, and then you have a bird in there too. And you do kind of end up with a channel that's right here, that's open, and I think maybe I would either put rocks over there, maybe change the direction of the bird. So there are a few things I would do to tweak it. But do you have any questions for me? The water's nicely done. I like the water.
I was just wondering compositionally, if it was like an S,
I mean, you can do, there's so many different types of patterns that you do. So I will just tell you how I like to work a composition. I like to work a composition like I'm reading a book. And I want something to introduce my focal point that would be on the left, and I want the introduction on the left. And then I'm comfortable personally having my focal point on the right-hand side, and that's how I usually work. So sometimes I do an introduction and I come over. I work with, like I said, a lot of patterns like diagonals, upside down V's, and you can study different patterns throughout history. I don't feel the S so much, so I don't see it. It's not obvious to me, so I'm getting a little stuck with things being too grouped in one area and then nothing on the other side. So I think you could work with it without just changing a lot. And sometimes I work with like a main focal point, then a secondary, a tertiary, whatever. And you could choose within here what you want. Does that help you? Hopefully I answered your question. But it's yeah. Composition is tough. And composition is probably the most important thing. When I teach portraiture, I'm like, who thinks about composition? That's the first thing I talk about. Like, because if you place it wrong and you paint it beautifully, what good is it, right? So, what is this? That's really, is that pastel? Who's that? Oh, it's really, really beautiful. I really like it a lot. I saw it over there and I was wondering if it was a photograph. when it was covered up. So I like it a lot. So I can tell you all the things I like about it. Do you have any questions though?
I have a little wooden box in there, and I was wondering.
I see it.
See if you like it.
I do like it. I love things that are kind of hidden and they grab you later on. So I really like that. So I like the colors. I really think it's a nice piece. A lot of times people say, well, maybe don't put the focal point right in the center. But I always feel like with sunrises, sunsets, it really works. I like that you have kind of a 3-point perspective. And then you've also thought about trees that are closer to you being darker, being fatter than things that are far away, and also how the tree limbs and branches kind of heat up as that sun is coming through. So when I look at it, I feel like you've hit, it's really a nice piece. I feel like you've done well with it, and I do like the box in it. So I would definitely keep that. And that always makes somebody smile. Later, they'll go and inspect it closely and they'll discover it, and it's a happy surprise. It's a nice frame.
Nice guy.
Okay, who's this? Over there, Bruce. So, it's very impressive. Where is this?
My wife and I are passionately in love with the Yankees in Chile.
Oh, wow.
Fly fishing. Catch the mountains because when you take a photograph, the mountain is about 1 3/4 times too low.
Right.
Photograph mine.
It's really beautiful. So, and I think it has, I like the composition, where you're overlapping to create depth. A couple things, that's titanium white. It does overpower things a little bit. And again, when I teach on painting white, I take all the primaries and white and I mix it together so I get something that looks like white but it's not quite white, because you want to always leave yourself room for just a little sparkle. So I feel like a couple areas here and here and in the clouds, the titanium takes over a little bit. It doesn't mean that you are going to paint it darker, but what it means is that titanium's a really cold color, and maybe warming it up and trying to soften it, I think would be good. When I get to here, and here, it's all a very similar value, like little shifts, and I would like to see something where it changes just a little bit, whether the water gets a little bit lighter, that's a possibility. It's signed, it's in a beautiful frame, so, it's real. So I hate saying, oh, do this and do that, but, because I always think once it's signed and framed, it's done, and, I don't want to say anything. But, those are the few things I would do. And when I was mentioning earlier to, convert a photo to black and white of your work and look at it and see, does it have the same impact? That's what I would suggest. But it's really an impressive piece, very nice. Yeah. And did you have any questions?
I'm doing a series, exhibit in different places. I've got about 3 done, and I've got about 20.
Good for you. When's your deadline?
No, they told me I need to have at least 15 for shows.
Wow. By when?
Well, whenever I get it done.
All right. That's very nice. Lovely.
I tend to, because the Andes are so dramatic, I tend to go overboard with some of the whites and the darks. That's the way I see it.
Very pretty. Okay, and who is that? Okay, over there. And before I just any questions, like something specific you wanna either address, and is it acrylic, is it oil? It's oil, all right, thank you. So, and they're are they tulips?
Yeah,
Okay, all right. I just try to understand it, okay. So, so it's nice because it does feel like there's nice movement and I get the sense of tulips, and I like the ones that are bending over there. I'm not exactly sure about this area, and what this is, where the tulips are kind of coming out of there. I think what I would do is, I would be careful not to divide your canvas right in half between. These seem all vertical, and it's almost like you have one painting on the side, and you have a different painting on that side. And so sometimes what I do with my students is I'll have them, the first thing is to paint or draw charcoal, a straight line through the middle down and a straight line this way, and try to make sure something extends over to one side, and that helps to create something that has a lot of unity. And so sometimes I just would say be careful that you divide between one area and the other with something straight down. Does that make sense? Can you see what I'm talking about? Yeah. And do you have any other, do you have questions or?
Probably the side with the bending tools can be darker, so, and think of that dark, they can move it that way.
Right. Okay. This is a fun piece. Is this yours?
That was fun.
It's yours. So it's a fun piece. It's like, is it Logan or
It's French Caribbean.
No, it is. They're really nice.
The question on it was, there's some little buildings on the hill in the back,
Okay.
and someone said that there shouldn't be there, and someone said that there should be there. And similar for the little piles of dirt, sand scattered around.
So I like the piles of dirt, but I would not put the buildings in, because the whole thing is, graphic, and I feel like if you got, and this person seems like they're, like this, looking up at the plane, and I just think the buildings just may take away from everything, and they're better off in just being in the hills in the background. A couple of things I would think about. I would, right here where the arm is just kind of resting, there's a part of me that just wants to see the forearm, like to see where it's going. So that's like the one thing I would think about with that. And I see you have the color from the sky to the water, and that's nice. From a distance I could see it, but up close I can. It's a fun piece.
It's a Japanese woodblock. So one of the things
Oh,
I
it is.
could do is do a gradation on the sky from darker to lighter. And
Right.
I think that would then highlight the hills more, and maybe also give more contrast.
It would highlight that, so I didn't know, I was wondering what it was, I was thinking it was markers, I wasn't sure.
Oh, yeah.
But you did it, and how flexible you could be with that. So, yeah, I just feel like with all this, that if you were to put in some houses, whatever, I think we would take away. The gradation would be interesting to try. I'm not sure if then you have to add other things in, I mean, it's nice kind of having it simple the way it is.
It's Japanese woodblock, so it's a woodblock print, but with watercolor ink. Is the Japanese. Yeah, you have 12 woodblocks to
And I like,
each block is a different color.
it's nice, I like the perspective of the towel, I love the stripes going on the towel. I think it's a fun piece.
The registers and get exactly.
Yeah, there's the technique for that, so.
Is it same bars?
It is, yes. So people often recognize the airplane.
This is digital art.
Digital art, and it's yours.
That's mine.
That's great. So, could you tell me a little bit about
Yeah,
it?
my son took that picture of me and my grandson 9 years ago when he was quite different, but the picture was quite interesting, and the picture's not in there at all. This is all my own drawing, except for a few things like the dead pottery and the micron pen and the black wing pencil are really photographs, but the other things are all things that I painted myself.
Wow, you did a really nice job, the whole face and everything. You did a great job with all of the features, and I love how your grandson is just looking right out to the audience.
Yeah.
It's like he has a story to tell or something, and I really, really love that. I think that's great. Are you finished with it? Or?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, yeah. The only thing, if I were to, one thing I would do is his orange shirt, you have like subtle, you just have subtle value changes within your sweater, and I'd be looking for something maybe with a little bit, so it's not so hard
Yeah,
flat.
the value changes were put in, but they don't show up very well here. I didn't do them enough, I guess.
Yeah, but it's really lovely. What a fun piece. I don't know anything about digital art. I always say it's too much to learn.
Lots of brushes, lots of colors, lots of everything. What am I going to do this one with?
Yeah, but I
Makes it
love his
difficult.
face, and I just feel if the shirt had a little bit more dimension to it, it would really match it.
Well, there's one thing about his face, I actually did go use the photograph a little for his hair because I just kept drawing haystacks and I got tired of it. But also the gradation on his face, the value on his face is taken from the photograph, but is not photographic.
Right,
It's just,
right.
I was able to make it smooth by doing about what the photo did and making it look good. And his face is soft, unlike mine, which is old and hard, so it's a real difference in the way the faces are done in the first place.
Really nice. Very cool. Yeah, it is.
I believe this is a similar genre from somebody else. I mean, manipulated digital.
Yeah, it's really that.
Digital watercolor.
That's really nice.
Professional program for all painter.
Yeah.
A young lady who taught regular art in Paris, and she switched to these techniques.
Okay, all right.
It took her 10 years to get the same and was able to do it.
Wow. The colors are just beautiful. So, yeah. So do you have a question for me on this, or?
Well, I didn't know whether the foreground needed more color.
Yeah, so the one thing that, close up, well, a couple of things. First of all, when nature's it doesn't always give you the perfect composition. So we talked about that earlier. And when I was looking at it, having like that bush right in front of this, it kind of has it all stacked. But I know you can't change things. And sometimes if you're trying to historically document something, you don't want to change it, you know. I feel like the foreground's really nice. This is a little flat over here, and maybe I'd add some texture like you did over here, like something a little bit more over on that side, using the lights over there. But I feel like looking at it from this angle, it could have just a little bit of texture, or can you do that? You can do that, right? Yeah, all right, you can do that. In terms of having the foreground darker, that's what you were saying? Is that what you're saying? Should you darken the foreground? I don't think you should. I think it's really nice. I think it's a beautiful piece. It's really nice. I love the tree. I love the house has just this beautiful glow to it. Really lovely.
A young lady who comes and helps me with the house. She likes it, but she said, maybe the tree should have leaves. And I said, no, I don't want to touch them.
No, I like it. I like it as is. I think it's really nice. Very beautiful.
All right, so we're going to take a 15-minute break. There's some snacks over in the corner. And then we've got more to go.
One thing about that particular picture. I'll have to read it because I can't remember, I think. It's a famous house in Norwood. It's right across from the church I go to, actually. And I gotta take my glasses.
It's really nice. Is it acrylic or oil? It's oil. It's really, I love the colors. I think it's just so nicely done. I love the texture that you have on the bark. And, you know, from a distance when I was looking at it, I noticed this bird, but now seeing it close up, I can see this bird is having a conversation with that bird there that's kind of hidden away. And I really, really love it. So I wouldn't change anything, but I am here to say some stuff to that. So the only thing that I would think about is the branch that's coming off of here. I don't know if I would have maybe toned it down, maybe gotten rid of it. I'm not sure. It kind of feels like it's reaching kind of up and out. I mean, that's the only thing that I see. So branches are really tough. When I think branches, I try to make sure that things don't run too parallel. And that would be the only thing over here. I mean, they are kind of angled in a nice way. But overall, it's such a pretty piece. It's a real, and unfortunately, if my job is to pick at things, I'm sorry. But I feel bad. But it's really a lovely piece. I wouldn't change anything.
Well, I would ask about the color of the frame.
The color
The
of
frame.
the frame. Oh, you're saying does that work with it or not? So this to me is kind of more of a personal color for frame. So whether it's you're looking to put it in your house, you have kind of that nice not country feel, but you know what I mean. I personally, when I frame things, I kind of use gold. I use black with gold. I like little gold trim, and a lot of times I'll use silver. And it's really good. So I have a lot of frames in my studio, so it's easy for me to just try one color versus the other. And there are many students, there are many professional artists who have said, you should always put gold on it because the gold really enhances everything. I'm just going to say I don't mind the frame. It would be interesting though to see if a black frame would pull out some of this with a little bit of trim on it, either silver or gold, or what a gold frame would look on it. But it's nice to have a bunch of frames handy where you can go and try different things. But it's a really pretty piece, really lovely. That's nice. And this is this piece over there, and it's watercolor. Nice job for that. Did you use masking fluid on there to get all the little sparkles? Well, that's a labor of love.
So actually, that's cotton. And it's the first time I ever used masking fluid, and the first time I used it.
So masking fluid is always tough, when you put it down, if it becomes part of your painting, and when you take it off, it's always sometimes unwelcome surprise, right? So I feel like you did a good job with the masking fluid, and I really feel you have a nice sparkle going on. I mean, some things I would think about, just the placement of the boat is like way off to one side. And I know I get weird about always thinking about, I like to put compositional things more on the right-hand side than the left. But you do have it facing in, so it does feel like it's carrying you towards the light of the water. So I feel like that's good. I like to vary my sky a little bit, so that's another thing you could think about. And even the water does vary. Water doesn't always follow the same rules as the sky. Like if the sky typically is dark to light, water, you have to consider the depth and all this stuff. So there could be some variation going on that you don't have. But I feel like your masking you handled really well, and there are a lot of little fine details that you probably did with a rigger brush or a very fine brush, and those are really nice. Really well done. So do you have any questions or no?
You said this was your first watercolor? That's not fair.
That's right. Great, and who's this?
Anonymous.
Okay.
Are they not here?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, sorry, that's mine, sorry.
Oh, okay. So I'm not an abstract painter, but do you want to tell me about it, or do you have some questions about it, or?
I can tell you it's always on acrylic paints.
Okay.
And this was done with the other set of other flowers. I didn't bring them with me because over the past few years I've actually sold them. And I just learned about the good, the bad, and the ugly with the frame as well.
Frames are always personal taste, and I always I feel, so if I look at this, I feel like the colors are very tranquil, so I do like that. I always like to see if I can understand the composition, and like I was saying, I always like to put compositional things like more on the right-hand side, so when I first look at this, what attracts my eye, and I go more over to, I go right to that spot, so maybe flipping it, and a lot of times when I'm putting something in for composition, I'll even lift it a little bit up. So not to say it has to perfectly match that one third mark here, with that 1/3 mark up here, but that's just something that I like to do and I like to look at. I do like the texture, and you know what, in the frame, like I said, it's gonna hit the right buyer, like if you're selling them, right? So if you have this in like a very airy home, I live in a Victorian, so everything in my house is very dark, would not work. But something like this, if it, is at the right place in the beach, I think it would work really well. And I like the colors, and I like the texture, I think the texture is nice.
It was all brush strokes. I'm experimenting right now with palette knife, a bit here and there, but not much. It's just been chaotic at my house lately.
Vertical. There you go.
Okay, and Mark, right? Mark, and Mark, do you want to just tell me about this one for a minute?
It's a political statement. It's a sign of the times. It is a portrait of someone I know.
Okay.
I enjoy the looseness of this and the psychological content.
Okay. For me, I'm a realist. And so, and that's the way I would critique things. So I really like the skin tones that you have, so I think that you really nailed that. I know you have two that you brought in, and the other one, I always think about shadow shapes, like a light source being on something and a shadow shape. I mean, here you put the focal point right on the right-hand side, and you have the hair that's kind of like dragging you towards that. And eyes are generally a focal point anyway. Other than that, do you have questions about it, or?
I'm always interested in people's reactions to it. That's part of this
function.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm a renderer, you know, so I'd be there like,
Yeah, I
oh
know.
my gosh, where's that pupil? And I would be here licking my brush and doing more detail. But some of the things I like and when I teach portraiture, even though my portraits are tighter, I like when there's looseness and a tightness going on. So we can say it's kind of tight over here where your focal point is and the hair is looser. And artists that I really admire with watercolor would be Mary White, who happens to do that. And if you are familiar with any of her work, she'll have a real tightness and a looseness. Bridget Schmid, the same type of thing. So that would be what I like, what I like about it. I think, yeah, I would be there, like I said, licking my brush and like
This looks just
making
like
things
it.
perfect.
It's a photograph.
I saw this one. This one's a labor of love.
It's
Sure.
it's a botanical drawing, illustration and painting, yeah, so, I worked on the bark area a lot, but the problem is the lighting. The lighting, the actual specimen is in the dark forest in Alberta, and I couldn't, every time I went, I couldn't find a really lighting.
Okay.
But I decided it's going to be from right. And then, so the flowers, the needles will become a little more shiny. And then, but the dark, how much dark I should go to the left-hand side?
Over here?
Yeah.
I wouldn't get it any darker.
Oh.
You know, I'm always thinking of form and trying around things, but I really love the texture, I love the bark. I think it's really beautiful, so I wouldn't do anything with it at all. I would love to see, is this a white pine or,
It's a brook pine.
That's very beautiful. And so it's a pen and ink? Is that pen and ink?
Watercolors and
So the detail is really pretty, and I would love to see what the finished piece looks like when you get it there. And no, I would not do anything over here at all. Is your plan to leave this a solid white?
Yes.
Yeah, so like a botanical illustration. I feel like it's really lovely, so I think once you finish it, it'll be good, but I would not darken that over there personally. Yeah. Very nice. Watercolor over there. It's yours, Naomi. Really, really pretty. First of all, is there something you want to ask me about it?
I guess I'm curious. I know everybody's tired of winter, but.
Winter's really beautiful, and it looks nicest in November or December. I know, by March really, done with it. But I love painting winter scenes, and the snow always has a beautiful glow. What I like is that you were thinking about depth and distance by getting things in the foreground darker to push everything back in space. Sometimes I do, it may be you wanted to get the shadows in here. Possibly I would have ran those off the page right here. And sometimes joining trees into the ground can be a little bit of a challenge. So many times with watercolor, I like to just add a little bit of water at the bottom just to kind of like join it in. Another thing that I like to do, I almost feel like the dark here does take over just a little bit. And even if you see these as dark trees, are you working from a photograph?
Yes.
Okay, so the photograph's going to really darken a lot of stuff. I would still add additional color in there, and I do feel that the darkness overtakes everything else a little bit. Like, so if they were just a smidge lighter, I think, and had maybe a little bit more form, maybe adding some other color, I think that it would make it a prettier picture. Because I think right now, especially down here, it just, it takes over just a little bit. I do like that you have these nice footprints going through, so I think that's really pretty. And I like the trees, and handling trees, for anyone who's ever painted trees and bridges, it is crazy hard, especially in watercolor, and I feel like you did a nice job with that. That's pretty little over there, okay, and is that acrylic? Oil, it's oil. All right, good. I can't tell, so I'm sorry. So first of all, bravo that you painted flowers, because I feel that flowers are harder than a portrait. I'm just saying. It's really difficult to get all the little petals, to get them nice and soft. At least for me, it is difficult. A couple of things. I always try to have a direct light source. So in my studio, unfortunately I have to work from artificial light, but I have artificial light that comes down, like forming 45-degree angle. I play with lighting all the time. So when you light something and you have light and shadow, just like we talked about with the lighthouse earlier, you create form and you create that roundness. And I think that's what I would be looking for. The second thing, when we get to the vase down at the bottom, and I don't know if you can see, but I would either want a little bit more space going on there, or I want it to run off the page. I think running off the page might be a little wonky, but I would want a little bit more space. Can I lift this up? Can I just, because I feel like you're like, uh-oh, I'm at the bottom of my canvas here, and I'm gonna squish it in, you know? And so I would want to see that maybe developed a little bit more, and maybe have it shorter just to give it a little bit more room. I feel like the background's pretty cool, so I like that you have that kind of marble look going on, so I think that's nice. We have another floral.
Oh, yeah.
Over here, all right. Really pretty too, so you have lilies and daisies, and so bravo for you for doing a floral. So I would say the same thing. I really like the white flowers, and if this were maybe more of a graphic piece, where everything is like a flatter color, I think these would work really, really well. But you started to create some form here. You have a little hint of a shadow. So I feel like your flowers maybe next time, right, when you do this again, different
I'm
ones.
still working on it.
You still work out, and you signed it.
I know, with the petal, and then on the petal on the right, I've thought that lily's kind of too big, I think. It's almost to the edge.
The petal on the right,
Your
Oh,
left.
my left, all right.
The
All right.
ball is up on the.
Over here? Where?
On the side.
Okay, over here.
Yeah, that one.
Okay.
That one, I got carried away.
Maybe a little bit, so sometimes so it looks like you have a direct light source that's coming in, so it's not that got that big, but maybe it would turn a little bit more, and so maybe this would get shaded. But it's almost like with the last one I said, the base was right at the bottom, you're like hugging this edge as well, so I would, and you always have to think, if you're gonna frame this, unless you're using a floater frame, your frame's gonna come in a 1/4 inch at least, so that's going to cause an issue. And then just sometimes what I like to do is have a softer edge down here, so I like to diffuse the edge so it pushes back in space, that's just me. But I think that the flowers and all the petals are nicely done. I would just, if they had a direct light source, they would just round a little bit more.
Okay, so a little bit more variation.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. That's us.
This is art. This work painting's had a tough history.
Oh,
It
yeah.
started out as a 11 by 14 picture of a man walking on a path in the woods. Acrylic. I
Okay.
didn't like it.
Yeah.
So then I took a palette knife and did the sky
Okay.
and made a landscape that I didn't like, and so I cropped it to this. And I think I'm almost there, and I want you to do the final cropping. Well, I can tell you how
I get this frame too close to the other frame. But we can look just to, is that what you want me to do?
No, let me show you,
Okay.
I want your opinion on
Okay.
it. So there you go.
Oh. Yes, I like you know what? So I'm partial to verticals. I like vertical formats a lot more. I don't know why. I don't know psychologically what that means, but
The other option would be
yeah.
like that, but.
No, I like vertical.
Okay, we're
Yeah.
on the same page.
Wow, that is easy. That is easy. I thought you wanted me to take it apart.
You got a commission, you sound smaller.
This is the last.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry, I should be grabbing. I'm so used to just grabbing and going. So this is really pretty. What color is that? Nice job. You have a beautiful variegated wash in the background. That's really nice. So variegated washes, they can be very intimidating and hard to
I
get.
got that idea for, it was a response to a poem
Okay.
that I did for the Duxbury Museum. So
Nice.
I was trying to illustrate the poem, which we started the poem around dislodging a seagull from the rock, out of the ocean, and gone. And without that reference photo, so I use reference photos to get what the birds look like, and the rest is invented. So I was just curious to see what you think of it.
So I really I love the washes. I love that you have that nice diagonal. I think you did a great job with the ripples. You have taller grasses here, which I always think kind of puts the viewer in and welcomes them into the whole thing. I feel if it were mine, I just feel like this seagull here it blends a little bit into the ocean, and I just wish it would just show up a little bit more. Because you can clearly see this, and this one gets lost just a little bit. Initially I thought maybe you could have a little bit more variation and value going on, but actually when I look at it close up, I think you do have that variation, and possibly here. So it's always interesting to play with value, and again, I feel like sometimes we are trying to copy a photograph, or, and in this case, maybe you just had a reference, but if the water got darker here, the wings of the seagull would show up, right? So you could kind of play having the light where you have something dark and having the dark where you have something light. Does that make sense to you? So that would be my one thing is right here, I would love that seagull just to show up a little bit more. And this is here. All right, I was talking to you earlier, and you said this is down in Bermuda. Okay, so I love the perspective. I really like the sky. I think that's all great. I am not a photographer, so like I said, I usually do photography for painting purposes only. But with that being said, when I do photography, for me personally, I love to have a light side and a shadow side. And things just don't Mother Nature doesn't always cooperate with that, or, I may go out at noontime and I won't get those shadows. So for me, I love everything that you have going on here, but I would love it if you had strong shadows. I think that would be great. And what are your thoughts on it?
I just took it randomly because
Okay.
it is a good, it's not my type of photo, actually.
Okay.
But, it's just how it came.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really nice photo, and like I said, I like the perspective, and I always like people, when there's some type of town or city or whatever, I love the fact when there's cars or people, because it just kind of brings it to life, so I like that, but I would look for more cast shadows or something like that.
I love photos of shadow.
Yeah. Nice piece. Do you want to tell me about it for a minute, or do you want to?
I don't have a whole lot to say about it. It's micron pens, and I just make up patterns.
Fun. So I think it's a really strong piece, and I love all the patterns that are in there, and I like the scope, I like the value contrast that you have. I mean, for me, I think about tangents, so if one thing goes into the next thing, I'm always thinking about depth of distance all the time, so I would just be mindful of, do lines connect, and like, does this building rooftop connect right into this, and or would it be slightly different? And maybe that's right, your idea that you want it all to connect, and that's okay. But that's things that I would look for. And then earlier, I pointed out when things get a little bit too tight to the top, I'm always very mindful. I always like to give a little bit of breathing room there, and I feel like you're kind of right on that edge. So if I were doing this, I probably would have maybe brought that tip down by a little bit. Overall, I think it's a very fun piece, so I like it. Yeah.
Is it of a certain place?
No.
Okay.
What was it like to do the sky? Oh, that's background. The black I didn't do, the background. I just drew all of the houses and the patterns in them. But
What's the black?
it's paper.
So, in 2 layers you got this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow, that's nice.
Paper and that line all this way.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
It works, yeah.
Well, like one.
We were all wondering.
Now you're gonna challenge me, right?
The right way?
Well, I found a piece of steel, and didn't know what I was gonna do with it. It was pretty rusty, so we used a grinder, which you can see all the vertical lines. So that gave it some texture. First of all, it can be hung from any position, not just the vertical, so there's no right side, left side, and so on. And I started with something that was basically, I had no idea what it was going to turn out. And I probably spent a year or two on multiple layouts for it. One thing you can see is that, and you cannot see it better than you are, that there are bumpers between the steel, right, and the wood, and then there's another set of bumpers between those as well. So it will cast shadows. The wood is all, you can see the pattern of how it goes down 2 holes on the one side and comes down one, so that there's a symmetry to it on the one hand. And on the other hand, I've had it called by a couple names, harmony on the one hand, and let's see, not metaphor, but that's the big way that it, tsunami, because the way they're conflicting with each other too. So it's really whatever you see. But it was really, when I finally came up with this, I said that's it. Well, the blue is all wood. Yeah. That actually came from, well, I created the design. The wood is actually from an old oak table. It was out of the apron, it was on the bottom of it. And I cut it into slices to do that. So it was actually plywood. But I had, after cutting it, I had to fill them with putty and so on to make them look finished.
It's really lovely. Very nice.
I like it vertical.
Well, I was in mostly vertical, that's why I have it hung in the house.
Yeah.
You have a vertical and you carry it
I actually flip it the other way. You can
the
see it.
first way you go up.
Well, that's because that's where they're hanging on.
That does look good.
Do you have a title for that?
Harmony or?
Awesome.